kind of unilaterally. Those were the two where I was like, what the why are
Like,
we
this is a
talking about
left-wing
it?
hoax. Why are we talking about it? But, anyways, let's look at Bill Clinton.
He was calling her Marjorie Trader Green.
Yeah, and
Kind of
that's
creative,
that.
but not really fair considering how much she supported him over the years.
I think he's pushed in such a corner he has to anyway.
He looked over at Mom Dunn. He's like, "It's okay, you can say yes." Welcome everyone to Washed Up episode 32. I'm Colin. This is Abby. We're here in Washington D.C. delivering the weekly news. So you don't have to listen to the legacy media that your grandparents do. A big announcement happened on Friday evening, actually kind of toward the nighttime. It was really surprising, and I feel like we're kind of beating some people to the punch here on covering it. But Rep. Marjorie Taylor Greene is going to be resigning from her seat in Congress starting January 5th.
Very surprising, very late. And as many know, Marjorie Taylor Greene is or was a very big MAGA supporter of Trump. She had said multiple times that she wanted to run her agenda of what she was doing and believing in through Trump's agenda of MAGA. So this huge fallout and his de-endorsement of her and everything that has happened in the past weekend
Yeah.
is really crazy.
There have been three headlines this year that have made me swear out loud in my apartment by myself, and this was one of them.
Like, what are the other two?
The other two was when Trump said the Gaza of the Middle East for, or
Oh,
the
right.
Riviera of the Middle East for Gaza, and then when he bombed Iran kind of unilaterally. Those were the two where I was like, what the?
So all of the headlines that have to do with Trump.
Basically, but also the headlines that have to do with Trump abandoning the America First platform, in my view, because if he was really putting American interests first, like why get yourself entangled with foreign nations, starting wars abroad, and like Marjorie Taylor Greene was also critical of Trump for that exact reason, because she thought he was straying too far and getting too dragged into conflicts abroad.
And more reasons why she is, I guess, drawing away from the whole Trump MAGA thing is that the Epstein files, what's happening there, I feel like is the biggest one that everyone has been talking about the most. I mean, Epstein files and all things Epstein has been flooded in all the headlines.
Right, and as a brief reminder about that, she was on the House Oversight Committee who just released all these documents from the estate, and they also just passed, the House and the Senate passed the Epstein Transparency Act, which was kind of spearheaded by Green and also Rep. Ro Khanna and Thomas Massie, and they all got together to get the DOJ to release the remainder of what the DOJ has about Epstein. And Trump reluctantly, I believe, is going to sign or has already signed that.
And we kind of talked last episode about how no matter what happened, it was going to go back to Trump anyway, but I think he's pushed in such a corner he has to anyway.
He flipped right after we recorded our last episode, where before he was saying, like, this is all a left-wing hoax, there's nothing in the Epstein files, why would I, like, order them released? While also simultaneously telling the DOJ to investigate Democrats who he thought might be in the
I
files.
know.
And he was saying it's all a left-wing hoax,
He's
why are
like,
we
this is a
talking about
left-wing
it?
hoax. Why are we talking about it? But anyways, let's look at Bill Clinton.
Yes. And so then, right after we recorded talking about that, he announced, okay, I will actually sign it. If the Congress passes it and it's on my desk, I'll sign it, ordering the DOJ to release the remainder of what they have. But there's some caveats, such as if there's national security risk or it pertains to ongoing court cases, then the DOJ doesn't have to release the documents.
Which I think are pretty big loopholes in that I think that the government can always say something like, "Oh, this is so national security risk," stuff like that, especially when or if there are like big politician names in these files or in these emails or in anything that has to do with Epstein, they could be like, "Oh, this is a national security risk because A, B, and C." Like, I think that that in its own term, I guess, is a vague statement.
hmm I mean, that's the basis which he's pushing the tariffs through, is saying it's a national emergency situation with the fentanyl coming across the border, yada yada. So yeah, they totally use that as a pretense all the time,
Hmm.
and they'll probably do the same with the files that they are supposed to release, but might withhold. So I also, yeah, wanted to bring it back to Marjorie Taylor Greene, and she was really angry about how all this went down because Trump was singling her out, even though she had been so loyal to him. and she put out this like 4-page statement again on Friday evening late. I was like taking a nap and I woke up, I rolled over, put out the Washington Post, and it said like she was resigning. And again, I swore.
Yeah, I was working. I was pretty busy, and I think the first headline that I saw was a screenshot that Colin had sent me because I'm not really on my phone much when I work, and I just like don't have really the time to be on my phone. And when I saw that, I also kind of made a reaction out loud, and some of my coworkers were like, "What, what?" And I had to circle back to it the next day. But I didn't personally read everything in that 4-page report or 4-page statement that she made because that's so much. But I've been seeing all the headlines. Marjorie Taylor Greene, like we had said, and like many people know, has been a very big MAGA loyalist. So Colin and I were kind of talking about how this seems to be the end of MAGA, especially if you had told me a year ago that Marjorie Taylor Greene was going to denounce Trump over after being such a MAGA loyalist, I would have been so shocked.
And the language she used as she was in the statement was, I thought, very strong. She was saying she didn't want to feel like a battered wife, hoping that things would get better. I'm paraphrasing that. But she also said, I thought this was a great quote of hers, where she said, when the common American people finally realize and understand that the political industrial complex of both parties is ripping this country apart, that not one elected leader like me is able to stop Washington's machine from gradually destroying our country, and instead, the reality is that they, common Americans, the people, possess the real power over Washington, then I'll be here by their side to rebuild it. And that I thought was strong in the context of what's been going on again. Trump is now sort of representing like sort of the establishment with his protection over the release of the Epstein files and starting wars abroad is very like neoconservative, not very MAGA, versus Marjorie Taylor Greene kind of taking up that mantle of the MAGA agenda that was sort of being abdicated.
Which I do like that quote a lot. I think there is some sort of irony in it too because she definitely is a very or was, I guess, a very divisive person when it came to like those strong MAGA values. Like some people maybe would say that she was also part of the problem in that there is a lot of divisiveness with MAGA within itself and that agenda that she wanted to be a part of in what Trump had said that he was running for in his campaign versus now he's pissing off so many people. Even people like Marjorie Taylor Greene are no longer supporting it, which is another thing. Like he is so crazy flippant when it comes to these things. Like he had called her far left or something like that, which she is obviously very, very far from far left. I
He also was calling her Marjorie Trader Greene.
Yeah, and
Kind of
that's
creative,
that
but not really fair considering how much she supported him over the years.
yeah, and that's another thing is Trump, once you disagree with him, he likes to turn all his little maggots against them. And it's just so crazy seeing something like this. It reminds me of what happened with Elon, what happened with Megyn Kelly, but kind of in the reverse. He was slandering her for a little bit and then they made up. And, Megyn Kelly is one of his supporters as well, who she always talks about him and gives him a little too much grace, in my opinion.
It's interesting to me how Trump does the way he seems to determine someone's like goodness or badness is purely, this is what I've observed since like 2016, is purely based on, are you useful to him or not? And if you are going to be like someone that he can reliably expect to perform how he expects you to, then you're fine and you're good and you're great and he'll praise you like over the top. And it just is so like, you know, again, like exuberant about how great someone is. But then again, if you stop being useful to him, then it's over. And it doesn't matter how long you've built up that relationship and how much you've done for him in the past. And I just think that that's such a terrible way to lead. Obviously, people who are listening to this can imagine or know people in their lives who might be like that, and no one likes being around those people. Like, objectively, that is a terrible basis to determine someone's value and inform relationships is, are you useful or not? I think the discard is inevitable at some point when you don't see eye to eye, and it just causes everyone around you to walk around like terrified. And
Everyone walking on eggshells when that's not how it's supposed to be, especially in our democracy. Another reason why I liked that quote you had read earlier so much is I've been agreeing that the divisiveness, which I think both of us have been agreeing with it, that divisiveness has kind of ruined a lot of what American politics is supposed to be. That's the reason why we even kind of started this podcast, is so that we can have a voice for and a space for politics in a way that's not divisive. I mean, obviously we have our opinions as a political commentary, but there's so much to talk about and there's so many different ideas from both parties, I think, in all parties in a way that we can, like she said, like rebuild the country.
like find common ground, but even not have to agree about everything. And I really like what I like about the Epstein file release and the process of it was that again you had Democrats and Republicans coming together over it. Again, Ro Khanna and Thomas Massie have been very friendly with each other to get this done. And in the end, the House voted unanimously, except for one person, to release the files. And so that shows you, like, when you work across differences, but are working for the same common goal, you can get stuff done. And I really think that that was at the heart of like what America was supposed to be when we created the government the way it is, a democratic republic. I think we were hoping that we would be able to compromise on the big issues, and that would be sort of the process by which progress happened.
What do you think are what do you think Marjorie Taylor Greene's next moves are?
Okay, so the quote,
There's a lot
yeah.
of headlines going around. Some people thought maybe she was going to run for president. Some people are like, "Ah, that's not going to happen." We don't know if she's going to run again for Congress.
Well, the quote that I read again was in the Washington Post, where she finished it saying, "I'll be here by their side to rebuild it." That leads me to believe she does have her eye on some other office at some point. But I think right now she's kind of just exhausted and it's going to take her time to process like the discard that she had with Trump and how brutal that probably was, given how much she'd invested in that. But I think she can come back stronger for it, and people might actually look at her a little bit differently even with more admiration if they see her as an independent thinker who broke away from someone who had treated her badly. Like, I think people tend to look up to people like underdogs who do that. So, to answer your question, though, I think I could see her running for Senate in Georgia or even president in 2028.
And I mean, I was never a big Marjorie Taylor Greene fan, but I do think, like you said, there's a layer of respect that comes with somebody who's willing to not just align themselves with Trump because they know that that's where the votes are at. That's where such a big like community of people who will automatically just follow whatever Trump says goes. So I am really interested to see what her next moves are, though um she does have reason to be afraid of things happening, like in terms of violence against politicians who do speak out against Trump, especially when it comes from the Republican Party. That was something that I remember very vividly in my capstone class from my senior year, that we talked about violence against politicians and how change in the political divisiveness has to come from the Republican Party to fix our democracy. But these people will leave the Republican Party outright, or they'll just silently leave, speak out maybe, but they're just too afraid to.
Yeah, and I think what you just said about how Marjorie Taylor Greene was starting to step up, but getting a lot of heat for it, so much so that she said she was getting threats against her life and her family, shows you again just how polarized things have gotten, and that is just the pattern that seems to be playing out right now with some of the more high-profile attempted assassinations and assassinations that we've seen in the past 2 years or so, at least. And I think it makes sense for her to step away if that's what's at stake for her, where she doesn't feel like she can be safe in the role that she's in as a representative. And that also speaks very poorly of the state that America's in right now, but it's not surprising, unfortunately.
hmm Which is a really big issue, politicians being afraid for their lives because that change, that change in the divisiveness and everything, it does need to come from the inside out. It's the same way that I think the Democratic Party needs to change. Like it needs to be more about unity than it does about anti-Trump. Like obviously they're anti-Trump, but what else do they have to offer? Which is another reason why I think so many of them, like there were so many losses at first in the Democratic Party and what I hope to see change.
And I do think things are starting to change on both sides. Like we said, this is sort of our first glimpse of like what a post-Trump Republican Party might look like. Someone who is a little bit more MAGA, who's able to kind of capture that populist base that Trump had, who he's kind of been straying from, not really catering to, even though he came into office saying that like that was his number one priority. So we're seeing candidates who are representing something a little bit different, but still the same like MAGA brand, and I think that that could have traction in the future, even beyond Trump. Ironically, again, Trump being a little bit more establishment recently, I wonder how Vance is going to navigate that if he does intend to run in 28, because he has to kind of toe the line with whatever Trump's messaging is. But if that's an unpopular message, which it is right now, Trump's approval rating is at its lowest point I heard in ever
And
as
he's
president.
probably out there gonna say something like, "Oh, it's fake news."
So I'm really interested to see, is JD Vance going to start changing his message, or is he just going to have to stick it out and support Trump no matter what until 28 rolls around?
It'll be a really big deal if JD Vance decides to speak out against Trump if he is running for the Republican nominee in 2028.
I would say also the Democrat post-Trump 2028 squad is coming together also. Like I think AOC is a one to watch for sure. She, I would not be shocked if she went after Chuck Schumer's Senate seat. There's some talk too that that might be on her agenda. Also, she would be old enough to run for president in 28. She represents sort of a different faction within the Democrats. Again, a little more socialist, a little Mamdani adjacent, you could
hmm
say. Actually, she that was one of the more recent wins that she had was she was helping campaign for Mamdani in New York, both of them being from New York, and might have even helped him get over the finish line.
hmm Speaking of Mamdani, him and Trump met.
Yeah, last week Mamdani was in the Oval Office, and I'm sure everyone's seen the clip that was circulating around it. Did you see it?
No, I didn't get the chance to.
Okay, so the press was asking Mamdani, like, do you still think that Trump is a fascist? You've been calling him fascist on the campaign trail. What do you say now? And Trump, it's pretty funny. He looked over at Mamdani. He's like, it's okay. You can say yes.
We did not see that.
I mean, it was, again, Trump is very funny. Say what you will about him. He has a lot of character flaws, but can be
Many.
objectively funny at times. And I found that to be pretty hysterical. And Mamdani was kind of taken aback. I don't even know what his answer was, but
I mean, it's Mamdani's also first time doing everything like this because that was a huge part of, I think, his campaign was like he doesn't come from politics or anything like that. So
well, it speaks
it's
to
really
what
interesting to
what we had
see.
talked about earlier in the show, where if Trump sees you as useful to him, he'll praise you, he'll joke with you, you'll be like the greatest person he's ever met. And then if you're not useful to him, he'll throw you under the bus. And I think he sees Mamdani as potentially useful to him now that he's in office. It's like you wouldn't ever start out a relationship on a bad foot without reason to, even though Trump has spent the entire campaign for mayor of New York calling Mamdani like
Name.
communist. I don't know if Trump referred to him as a jihadist, but certainly the right was calling him that,
hmm
and just, throwing everything they had at him. But now that he's in power, it's like, oh, we can be best friends again. Like, I don't know. It's a strange way of navigating those types of situations, but very much the pattern when it comes to Trump.
And should we talk a little bit more about Epstein files.
Sure. I mean, I'm not very optimistic that a ton is going to come out, but some stuff has already started to happen. I'd say the people who were revealed in this latest batch of emails that came out, we talked about in our last episode from the state, some people have already started to take a hit in the reputation department.
Hmm.
For instance, Larry Summers was someone who messaged with Epstein pretty frequently, even after Epstein was convicted of the soliciting a minor for prostitution charge. So it was known that he was a nefarious guy, and Summers continued to message him up until 2019, like right before Epstein was arrested. So his reputation took a big hit. He had to step away from being a board member of OpenAI. He was former president of Harvard, but still teaches at Harvard and is now taking a step back from that. So he might be kind of one of the first people to really lose stuff on account of his association. He says that he regrets his association with Epstein.
That's what they all say.
I mean, yeah, but like, come on, like,
The post 2008 people still keeping in contact with him and all of that coming out is going to be a huge, huge, huge fallout for many people in terms of like the angry public, I want to say.
I mean, it has this kind of feel like, yeah, like the elitists, the in group, and they're willing to look past crazy indiscretions and criminal acts as long as you're sort of wealthy and well connected. And I mean, that really is at the heart of the whole Epstein scandal is the ways that he was able to stay in people's good graces, even well beyond when it was obvious that he was a bad dude.
Hmm. And I mean, that's like a lot of the people in power and things like that, but I think that the tide is turning in that way. Like even like we said, like both sides are so adamant on getting these files and everything released, as seen with the Epstein Transparency Act.
I think that Gen Z is really part of turning that tide. And also, I think having the internet, growing up with the internet,
True.
has changed that tide. Because imagine, like, pre-internet, people could kind of get away with stuff because it wouldn't be like everywhere if someone did something nefarious. It would be harder to research people, although not impossible. And, like, arguably, the people who maintained association with him should have and likely did know what he was doing wrong. But, like when you could just Google search someone and their background and criminal history, even.
And the way that people can connect online in terms of having seen these people or victims online, they could reach out to one another. It kind of reminds me a little bit of when everything with Diddy came out and everyone was like, why did it take so long for this to reveal? And Hollywood is on its downfall. And it's because of things like the internet and social media. Like, in this way, I guess technology is able to hold these people accountable more so than the actual law is.
Yeah, and I mean, we've seen that lead to like vicious stuff like cancel culture, which, when people decide that someone's been canceled for whatever reason because they disagree with them and everyone dogpiles on, and the internet can be used in a bad way in that way. But when it is something such as someone's past nefariousness or association ongoing with someone who's a criminal, I think it's good that we have access to that kind of information, and no one in Gen Z is gonna argue against transparency on that.
No, I agree with that. Gen Z, when it comes to cancel culture, they're so intense about it, but the
When
people who deserve it deserve it.
when well directed, I mean,
When
yeah.
well directed is what I meant by that. Like, there are some things that I'm like, oh wait, okay, let's relax here. But I do agree with you that Gen Z is a major leading factor of why these Epstein files and why everything is so public. Like, what people aren't afraid of talking about it online at all.
My only concern, and as helpful as the internet has been, I do worry that it may have already seen its heyday. And then recently, I feel like there's just been a lot of sort of like slop posted on the internet. And that's been kind of upsetting to me because I feel like it used to be much easier to go to Google with a very specific question and be like, type it in, find the results and search through the results for a little bit, but you're kind of like self-directed and usually can find what you need really easily. And lately I've just been noticing that I feel like the internet has more dilution to it and less like specificity in search results. And I worry that it's partially being driven by how much AI is like now integral to internet searches and all of that. And just the results that I feel like you get, it's harder to find what you're actually looking for, I've noticed. And that concerns me because I worry, like, we've taken it for granted for so long how the internet has allowed us to access information and be more transparent. I worry that are we now on a downward trend in that regard?
Probably. I think about the younger people, like the younger part of Gen Z and Gen Alpha, and then whatever Gen comes after that, in how they're going to navigate the internet and the world when AI is so prevalent. I think that AI is a good tool to use when it's used right and when it's used in doses. Like once you open that can of worms, it can't really go back inside. But I am concerned about how many worms are coming out.
Well, I mean, I feel like the slang word like brain rot started about a year ago because there was so much content on the internet that was just kind of nonsensical and it was really appealing to I wouldn't say Gen Alpha.
Gen Alpha.
Gen Alpha was very into like brain rot.
And like the youngest part of Gen Z, I want to say.
Hmm.
Like my sister, she's 16 and she's technically still like she's like a Gen Alpha, Gen Z cusp.
But I want to say maybe I'm just nostalgic for like our era of internet when we were teenagers and whatnot. And there's certainly like we had our memes, we had our kind of nonsense, but it wasn't without a point. Like I feel like we used the
Because there was
internet
a lot of like quoting vines and things like that.
and even okay, I guess here's my real point. It's like even when our stuff was nonsensical, it was still unifying. Like we were unified over the fact that we all knew the same memes and the same vines, even if they were inherently kind of nonsense. But I feel like with brain rot, it's like everyone is in their own area of the internet that is equally nonsensical, and there's no like communication across those domains. And so everyone is just sort of sitting in their own nonsense, and it's not really productive or useful for research, and certainly.
Yeah, I personally don't go on social media as much as I used to, partly because I was so focused on other things, but also because I downloaded this app and it doesn't allow me to look at things. I don't know, it's a whole thing. But I do think that there's a lot of nonsense out there that I'm hoping it resolves itself soon. I think that Gen Z kind of sees a little bit of that, but then I think to myself, do I sound really old right now? Where I'm like, ah, you kids and your internet. I'm like 23 years old. My sister always calls me really old for that.
Well, I hope that Washed Up can be our own, not our own silo. We can actually reach across all the different domains that other people are sort of trapped in a way and break through to them as well, so that we can all kind of be on the same page about like what is actually happening in the world. Because it's not good when everyone is hearing different messaging all of the time and not even able to agree about basic facts and information. Yeah.
And I'm not saying that everything that we say is Bible. I think that Washed Up should be a place of welcoming conversation. Like that's the whole thing that I think we both agree with, and that a lot of discussion can be such a vessel for change.
I'm interested in exploring a little bit what you're saying about the downfall of social media within Gen Z, because I've noticed too. Like, I feel like our peers and us, we would post on Instagram especially. Like, that was kind of the main hub where everyone would post. And then you also had like Snapchat, which I feel like both of them have really started trailing off a
Oh
bit.
God, I think that Gen Z hates social media. I know so many people who don't even scroll anymore and who just used to post. Like I'm included in that. I don't use Instagram to scroll through people's stuff. Like I'll go on it every once in a while to like post a story or post myself, but when I'm on it, I like only want to look at like my friends' things, like my close friends at least, their stories or things like that. I think that the commodification of social media is its downfall. Because even when Instagram, for example, like changed their algorithm, like I loved when Instagram used to just be like, you scroll and you scroll and you scroll and oh, I'm caught up. Because this is the last thing I liked from 4 days ago. But now it's like in all these different orders. Like once you scroll and you refresh, for example, like that post is gone. It doesn't matter the date it was. Like there used to be a time where Instagram like didn't have any like ads or like anything like that.
It was chronological.
It was chronological, yeah. And that was like that was social media peak in my opinion. Maybe I sound really old saying that or like washed up, if you'll say. But I do think that was the point of what social media is supposed to be, like sharing your life and there's no pressure about it or anything like that. I think there's just too much commodification when it comes to that. Even like TikTok and Reels and everything like that, the algorithms are killing us. But I think Gen Z are all on the same page. We just don't really speak about it to each other. Like I know so many people who just use Instagram to post. And it's
Yeah.
like if we're all posting and no one's actually looking, like who cares?
You gotta post and ghost is what Joe Rogan always says, and I do think that's solid advice. Like you can't be on there forever scrolling, and certainly I think Gen Z is really over the like comparing yourself to other people thing. We recognize like social media, especially Instagram, can kind of be like your highlight reel in a way, but
And Instagram, I think Gen Z looks at Instagram and they're like, oh, that shit is so fake. Like no one's Instagram is real and stories are so curated versus like I want to say like TikTok or Snapchat or something like that. Snapchat people don't even use anymore. Like I don't even see people post
it's
on Snapchat. It's so dead. Like the only reason why I still have it is because of memories. Like there's just too many that I like never want to delete it. And I think that um yeah, people aren't looking at that stuff. Like I think TikTok I think is more of an unserious like realer place because people don't care what they post on there versus Instagram is very like model-esque and like
well, Instagram also kind of cannibalized Snapchat when it started its like stories feature, and then Instagram added a map, and everyone was like, I
oh
don't want
I didn't know
to.
that. I didn't even know that.
They're like, I didn't want a map on Instagram, and that was sort of Snapchat's thing, and they stole it. Well, they took it, borrowed it, whatever you want to say about it. And then Snapchat, there's no real reason if it's all consolidated, all those features are together within
Even
Instagram,
close friends on Instagram
right?
and that's like Snapchat's like private stories.
Right. And so Instagram's still around, but I think, yeah, people see the fakeness of it. And I think at best it can sort of be like a photo album to look back on, like even for your own use, again, sharing with friends, catching up.
I like highlights a lot.
Yeah. We have an Instagram for Washed Up, and I think it is a good like it shows progress from where we started to where we are now. And in that way, not that I like go back on there and look at it, but I think it captures something like the progression of it, and I enjoy that.
At Wash Up Weekly.
But okay, so we're predominantly on YouTube and Spotify, and those I think are great because you can post like long form stuff there, and I think Gen Z is really hungry for long form content as opposed to just short, brief, quick. I mean, yeah, they're still on TikTok, but I
But
think
even TikTok, like it expanded to like 10 minutes.
okay.
Maybe
Yeah,
even more. I don't even remember the last update, but I'm sure that you could post such long form content on TikTok now. Live streams, everything like that.
as we've learned, long form, it's very hard to be inauthentic on long form for like an extended amount of time. You
Especially the way that we do it. We just hit record and hope for the best.
pretty much. Yeah. Actually, we have talked in the past a little bit, even we want to do a live stream at some point. Thinking tentatively an end of year live stream looking back on all of 2025 could be fun.
Our stories that we missed, our stories that we wish we did, the best of Washed Up. We could do like a Washed Up awards show.
That would be amazing. We could either do, I'm thinking end of year or like our 1 year anniversary of the channel, which is coming up in January. We'll see. We'll get back to you guys on that. Or let us know if you have any suggestions.
Is there anything else that we need to talk about for our major stories?
Not really. I could just say, give a quick little update on the ground in DC. I feel like we like to do that in our
Yeah,
episodes.
I love talking about DC.
So now that the government's reopened, things are a little more optimistic. I would say but also the National Guard is still out and about. I actually was running on the mall today, and there was like 100 of them all boarding a charter bus. Not sure where they're going or what they're doing. I'm really tempted to take a picture with them, but I also am not sure if that's allowed, where they would comply.
Yeah, people do it all the time though. I saw some people make videos with them.
I feel like I don't know, like what other what other options do we have but to sort of try to see it lightly? Luckily, I heard that there is some chance that it's going to be declared not illegal, but that they are going to have to withdraw the troops because it had worked its way up in the court, and there's a chance it might get struck down that, Trump can just issue deployment of the National Guard.
We shall see what happens. Hopefully they will be gone come New Year, but highly doubt it.
We shall see.
Okay.
All right. Thanks for listening
A
this week.
short and sweet episode.
We hope you learned something. Washed
Step
up
out.
out.